Hi, my name is Lily and welcome back to my channel. So it is finally time to announce my Woody's Roundup Readathon. This is a Toy Story themed readathon. If you've been following me for a while, you'll know that back in the summer of 2020 I hosted the Pixarathon, which was a Pixar themed readathon. Even before I hosted Pixarathon, I had been talking to some friends about wanting to host a Toy Story themed readathon, but I was kind of told that that was too specific and that I should just go for Pixar first. And seeing as Pixarathon, whilst it was a small readathon and we didn't get that many people joining in, the people that were joining in were really enthusiastic, and that really cheered me on to create the Toy Story readathon, which has now been named the Woody's Roundup Readathon. The Woody's Roundup Readathon will be running for the whole of February. You can either start it at midnight on the British time zone, which is where I am, or in your own time zone, whichever one works best for you. Now, this readathon is going to be very, very different to Pixarathon, but I will still be using the Twitter that I use for Pixarathon, which is at Pixarathon. I'll put it here if you can't figure out how to spell that, which is fair. This time around there will be different teams for you to join. Now, I haven't included a competitive aspect this year because I wasn't sure how many people were going to join in and I didn't want any teams to feel a bit left out. So whilst there are a lot of teams and you can choose your team, there's not going to be a competition to try and read the most or anything this year, but I'm looking to bring that in the future. So how does the Toy Story Readathon work? I hope I've not made it too complicated. I really just wanted to make it different from Pixarathon and from the other readathons that I have been taking part in this year. So obviously the key difference is there are teams. There are 7 different teams that you can choose to be on, and each team will have a different list of required characters to collect. Then you can also steal characters from other teams. To collect your required characters, you will need to complete a prompt relating to that character, which I will get into later on. But if you want to steal some extra toys that are parts of other teams, you still have to complete that prompt, but you have to steal the book that you read from someone else. There are 2 ways that you can steal your book to be able to steal a character. The first one is borrowing it from a library or a loved one. So that can be any book you want as long as it fulfills the prompt. Your other option is to steal a book from someone else's TBR. That doesn't have to be a Pixarathon or a Woody's Roundup TBR. It can just be a TBR that someone's posted in the past or recently. So it kind of is a bit of a free pass to pick any books that you think would fit the prompt, but it would be nice if you could say whose TBR you have stolen it from. The other difference is that each team captain has selected a team book. So you could use it to collect a character required for your team, or you could use it to steal a character from someone else's team without stealing the book from someone else's TBR. The biggest difference is that if you choose to read the team book, you can use that to replace any prompt that you want. So if there's a prompt that you don't like for a character you're required to have or a character you would like to steal, you can read your team book instead of reading a book to fit the prompt. Of course, this can only be done once. If you choose to read a different team's team book, you can't still use that to get rid of a prompt. You can only do this once with your own team's team book. Regular readathon rules applies. You can only have 1 book per prompt, so you can't use 1 book to fulfill multiple prompts or to collect multiple characters. It's 1 book per character. Anything that's on Goodreads will count for this readathon, so that can be graphic novels, comic books, audiobooks, ebooks, physical books. Anything that will come up on a Goodreads search is okay for this readathon. I thought next I would go through all the different teams with you. First of all, there is my own team. I am going to be the team captain of Team Andy. Of course, Andy is the most iconic of the human characters in the Toy Story universe. He is the original owner of Woody, Buzz, and all of the most iconic toys. So to be on my team, which is Team Andy, you need to collect Woody, Buzz, the soldiers, Mr. Potato Head, RC, Ham, Rex, Slinky Dog, and the aliens. That's quite a lot of characters to collect, but that's because Andy obviously is the owner of some of the most iconic toys. Team Andy is recommended to steal 3 characters, and those are Barbie, Bo Peep, and the sheep, which have all been stolen from his little sister in the first film. The team book for Team Andy is Diary of a Young Naturalist by Daryan McAnulty. This is a non-fiction kind of biographical work by Dara about what it's like being a young naturalist in his home environment, and he is also autistic, so that's why I've chosen it. Next up we have Team Sid, which is going to be captained by Kira from Kira Can Read, and of course Sid is another iconic character from the first movie. He is our villain in the first movie who steals toys from his sister to mutilate them basically and destroy them. This means that we don't have many recognisable toys for him to collect, but we still have some. The characters required for Team Sid are Janie, the mutant toys, and Combat Carl. It's also recommended that you steal Woody and Buzz because they end up in Sid's house, and also Forky. As we all know, in Toy Story 4, it's revealed that Sid ends up to be a trash collector, so Forky is very appropriate for Team Sid. Your team book is Wilder Girls by Rory Power. The next team is Team Owl's Toy Barn, which is captained by Daryan from Daryan Reads. In the second book, when Woody gets stolen, he is stolen by Owl, the owner of Owl's Toy Barn, and all the toys have to go there to try and find him. So to be on Team Owl's Toy Barn, you need to collect Tour Guide Barbie, Buzz, Emperor Zurg, Jessie, Stinky Pete, Bullseye. And of course, it's recommended that you steal Woody from another team, because obviously Owl steals Woody in Toy Story 2. And your team book for this one is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. Next up we have Team Bonnie. Again, this is another big one because Bonnie brings in a whole host of her own toys to the Toy Story universe. This team is captained by Livy from Shells of Starlight. Your required characters are Woody, Peas in a Pod, Trixie, Dolly, Buttercup, Chuckles, Mr. Pricklepants, and of course, Forky. Rather than giving you any specific toys to steal for this team, it's recommended that you steal some toys either from Andy's team or Sunnyside Daycare, because obviously Andy gives Bonnie all of his toys at the end of Toy Story 3, and Sunnyside Daycare is where Bonnie's mum works, so it's likely that she'll interact with the toys there. Your team book is Frost Heart by Jamie Littler. Speaking of, your next team is Sunnyside Daycare, the daycare centre that the toys are donated to in Toy Story 3. This team is captained by Helen from Helen's Bookhaven. To be on Team Sunnyside Daycare, you need to collect Barbie, Ken, Lotso, Stretch, Big Baby, and the monkey. It's also recommended that you steal any toys from Andy's team because obviously they end up being donated there. Your team book is The Strange Worlds Travel Agency by L.D. Lipinski. Now moving on to Toy Story 4, your next team is Team Lost Toys, headed up by Sarah from A Mundane Life. In Toy Story 4, we're introduced to this whole different world of the Lost Toys. So to be on Team Lost Toys, you need to collect the most iconic of the Lost Toys. They are Woody, Bo Peep, Giggle McDimples, the sheep, and Ducky and Bunny. It's recommended that you steal Lotso, Big Baby, Jessie, and Forky because they are all lost at different points in their pasts. Your team book is The Distance Between Me and the Cherry Tree by Paola Peretti. On to the last team of the readathon, definitely not the least, that is Team Second Chance Antiques. Your captain is Elise from the Petite Punk. To be Team Second Chance Antiques, you need to collect the toys that we meet there, which are Bo Peep, Gabby Gabby, The Dummies, and Duke Kaboom. It's also recommended that you steal Woody and Forky because they spend much of their time there in the fourth film. Your team book is The Stars and the Blackness Between Them by Junarda Petrus. I'm really sorry if I said that name wrong, but I tried. So those are all of your teams, and once you've picked your team, you will need to then go through and find the prompts for all the characters that you wish to collect and steal. Of course, just like in Pixarathon, I highly encourage you to bend these prompts as much as you need to try and get your books in. I don't want people having to go out and buy loads and loads of books. I want people to be able to take part as much as they can. Now, I know this is a bit much to keep up with, so don't worry, we have created a document which will be linked down in the description below. Here it is. It has pages for all of the teams in it, pages for the prompts, and also it has pages to plan your TBR. And finally, it has a tracker for what books you read during the readathon. So let me go through the prompts for you. The prompt for Woody is to read a book set in a historical setting, because obviously Woody is a slightly historical character, being a cowboy. For Buzz, you need to read a sci-fi book. For Slinky Dog, you need to read a book that's over 450 pages, because obviously Slinky Dog is really long. Rex is the sweetest character in the whole series, so to collect Rex, you need to read a book that has a cinnamon roll main character. To collect Mr. Potato Head, you need to read a book that features disguise or disguises in some way. To collect Ham, who is Andy's money bank, you need to read a book that focuses on money or wealth. To collect RC, you need to read a book that is a fast read for you. To collect the soldiers, you need a book that focuses on a team or a squad. To collect the aliens, you need to read a book with a green cover. To collect Janie, you need to read a book that you have stolen. This is an additional stolen book prompt because Janie is stolen from Sid's sister. To collect the mutant toys, you need to pick a book that has an ugly cover or a ugly cover variant. So it can be the cover you own that you think is ugly, or a alternative cover for that book you think is really ugly. To collect Combat Carl, you need to read a book that features a character death. It doesn't have to be one of the main characters, it can be a side character. The reason for that is because Combat Carl is the sacrificial lamb in the movie. To collect Tour Guide Barbie, who is different to regular Barbie, you need to read a book set in a place you would like to visit. To collect Emperor Zurg, you need to read a book that features villains in some way. To collect Jessie, you need to read a book with a strong female lead. For Bullseye, you need to read a book with an animal on the cover. Because he is the gold prospector, for Stinky Pete, you need to read a book with gold foiling on the cover. For Peas in a Pod, you need to read a book that features close siblings. To collect Chuckles, you need to read a book that you think is sad or will make you sad. Trixie is the computer whiz, so to collect Trixie, you need to read a book that focuses on computers in some way. Mr. Pricklepants considers himself to be a very serious actor, so to collect him, you need to read a book that you think is serious. Buttercup is a unicorn, so to collect him, you need to read a fantasy book. To collect Dolly, you need to read a book with a purple cover in the honour of her purple hair. To collect Forky, read some trash. To collect Lotso, read a book that you've forgotten about in some way. It could be a book that's been on your TBR for a really long time, or a book that someone has keep recommending to you and you keep avoiding it. Whatever it means to you to be a book that you have forgotten. To collect Ken, you need to read a book with a pretty cover. To collect Big Baby, you need to read a book you are intimidated by. To collect Stret, you need to read a book that's set on or near the sea. To collect the monkey, you can read either an audiobook, or if you're unable to listen to audiobooks, a book with a loud cover, however you would describe as loud. This is of course because Monkey is the one that crashes his cymbals to let everyone know that there's escapees. To collect Barbie, you need to read a book that you have unrealistic expectations for, because of course Barbie has an unrealistic body shape. So that could be a 5-star prediction or some other book that you just completely have unrealistic expectations for. To collect Ducky and Bunny, you need to read a book that features characters that are inseparable. To collect Bo Peep, read a book that has a disabled main character. To collect Giggle McDimples, you need to read a book that focuses on the law or law enforcement. To collect the sheep, read a book set in the countryside. To collect Duke Kaboom, read a book that's overhyped because of course Duke Kaboom was made out to be a much better toy than he actually was. To collect Gabby Gabby, read an underhyped book because of course she was very underappreciated. And finally, because they do everything that Gabby Gabby tells them to collect the dummies, you need to read a book that someone else has told you to read. This could be a poll selection by your followers on social media, or it could be a friend or family recommendation, however you want to do that one. So those are all of the prompts. If you get stuck with them and need any recommendations, feel free to tweet at me or any of your hosts. All of their Twitters are going to be linked down the description below. Of course, if you tag Pixarathon in anything, I will be going through both the hashtag and looking at the mentions for Pixarathon's account and retweeting anyone that needs any help or shares anything about the readathon. The readathon will be running throughout the whole of February, so you'll have a whole month to get all of those books done, to read as many as you can. But of course, if you can't get your TBR done, it doesn't really matter. We're all just here to have fun at the end of the day. Some of the captains and myself might not even finish our whole TBRs, we'll just have to see how it goes. I will be hosting sprints and potentially a 24-hour readathon over on the Pixarathon Twitter, so definitely go and give that a follow if you're interested in any of those things. I really hope you're considering taking part in Pixarathon. Please let me know down in the comments if you are planning on taking part, because it would make my day. You can definitely adapt these prompts to work however you want them to, especially if you read different genres. It doesn't matter. Hopefully you'll be able to make these prompts work for a variety of genres. That was kind of my goal here. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a like and consider subscribing to see more content from me. All of my social media links are down in the description below. If you want to leave me a comment to let me know you were here but you don't have anything else to say, leave me a little cowboy hat smiley face emoji. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!